A relationship in any circumstance doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be real. So is it in the diplomatic world. It is evident today that the efforts taken by the leaders long ago towards establishing a better future through diplomatic relations has brought about civilization and a positive transformation to the present era that we live in. Our conversation today is based upon an international relationship that started 63 years ago between Cuba and Sri Lanka. And we are privileged to have this conversation with His Excellency Andres Gonzalez Garrido, the Cuban ambassador for Sri Lanka. Your Excellency, it's with a deep sense of honor that we welcome you for today's edition of Diplomatic Faces. And we are deeply honored that you have joined us today. Just like we ask many of the dignitaries who sit with us in this program, I would like to ask you, what motivated you to become a diplomat?
Well, for me it's an honor to have this opportunity to be together with you this afternoon, and I take the opportunity to send greetings to the peoples of Sri Lanka that recently commemorate a new anniversary of the proclamation of its independence. Well, I must tell you that when I was a teenager, it was at the beginning of the Cuban Revolution in 1959. The Cuban Revolution was was a fact that caused admiration in many countries around the world. And this privilege that countries around the world were interested in the Cuban process motivate me to also be more interested in foreign countries. For this reason, I apply to to work at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Having joined the Information Division of the Foreign Ministry in 1970, in your years of experience, what sort of challenges have you faced when you had to represent the Latin American region?
Well, for me, it was an honor to represent my peoples, my government abroad, because the figures of Fidel Castro or Che Guevara were very well known around the world. Then everywhere where I arrive, I always receive the interest about the Cuban process, about the achievement of the revolution, and it encouraged me to do a good job and also transmit to the different peoples the message of solidarity and friendship from Cuba.
Definitely, it's a Thanksgiving job, Your Excellency. If I may ask you, how many languages do you speak? And do you feel that language is a challenge when you have to move from one country to another?
Well, it's true. For an official of the Foreign Service, it's very important the knowledge of the language. But after that you learn some one or two languages, others came more easily. At the same time, when you arrive to any country, you always receive solidarity. This is an international norm. Even here, when I arrived to Sri Lanka, immediately I received the support of the Sri Lankans graduates in Cuba, that they immediately came here and helped us to insert in the society.
So definitely, whichever the language we speak, the language that the world would understand is humanity, kindness. So as long as we do something good and we represent the country that we're serving and the country we come from for a very good reason, I guess we can always be happy. Sri Lanka is one of the first countries to recognize Cuba and establish diplomatic relations way back in the month of July 1959 with Mr. Fidel Castro's ascent to power at the same year. With that, Che Guevara became a very popular revolutionary leader across the globe. And as the Minister of Industries, he did visit, I believe, somewhere in August in the same year of 1959. And definitely the Sri Lankans do love him. Where does his political movement stand in Cuba at present?
Yeah. Yes, Che Guevara visit Sri Lanka in a tour for different Asian countries. He came here on a special envoy of the leader of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro. He came in order to develop the relation with this part of the world, because unfortunately Cuba, before the revolution, had relation, especially with the west part, and especially with the north of our country. It means with the United States. Then the policy of the revolutionary government was expand the relation with all the world, not only with one part. Yes, Che Guevara was here and he received a very warm welcome for the authorities of that moment, and visited some places in Colombo and near Colombo where he planted a tree. This tree became a symbol for the youth in Sri Lanka. This place is visited by members of youth organization every year. In that occasion, when Che Guevara was here, he signed an agreement with the authorities of, at that time, Ceylon, for the supply of Cuban sugar to Ceylon, of 20,000 tons of sugar cane. It was very important because at that time Cuba had a preferential market to export the sugar to the market of the United States. But unfortunately, this preference, this opportunity become a problem for our economy, because we must to export this sugar in order to receive income for our economy. For this reason, this visit was political and also a way to expand our trade relation with all countries around the world. This visit includes other countries like India, Pakistan, Indonesia, and I think that Pakistan also. After that occasion, immediately, because the visit took place on May, and on July, Cuba and Ceylon established relation. And since that time, this relation not stopped. At the beginning, the embassy was established in New Delhi, and after that, here in Colombo. In Cuba, Che Guevara is very admired for the peoples and for the youth, because his example offered them motivation for work for the country, and also not only for the country, even for other countries around the world.
Definitely. His name will reign as a hero, especially among the youngsters who look up to his vision. Speaking of Sri Lanka and Cuba, they were both members of the non-aligned movement, and Cuba hosted the non-aligned summit in 1979 and played a leading role. What is your view on non-aligned movement, and how does it benefit the world today?
Yes, Sri Lanka and Cuba are founders members of the non-aligned movement. Yes, it's true. In 1979, took place in Cuba the sixth summit of the non-aligned movement. We received the president from Sri Lanka. We received the president from Sri Lanka, and since that moment, both countries have a very close cooperation in the development of the movement. We consider that the non-aligned movement is very important for countries like us, because in this moment, this movement can play a very important role for the different challenges that the countries that us have. At the beginning of the movement was concentrated in problems between the big superpowers. Now we have another challenge, and both countries works in this same way.
Sri Lanka and Cuba have cooperated in numerous sectors with a mutual goal of development and economic progress. Also, Cuba has supported Sri Lanka in many international platforms. What issues does Sri Lanka and Cuba have in common that they can work together for a better progress for the future?
Yes, in fact, Sri Lanka and Cuba, since the establishment of a relation, worked together to develop both countries. Cuba try to support Sri Lanka with scholarships. We have already the results of this program. We have in this moment more of 100 Sri Lankan graduates from Cuba. We have doctors, we have engineers, informatics, specialists in sports, etc. But not only this, we also have a very important cooperation in the international arena. Sri Lanka support Cuba since 1992 in the Cuban resolution at the United States against the embargo or blockade of the United States against Cuba. That this resolution received the unanimous support of the international community. And in this regard, we really appreciate very much the contribution of the government and the people of Sri Lanka in this claim of Cuba.
We're definitely thankful for all the support you have given, and we are also glad that you appreciate our cooperation. As you mentioned, Your Excellency, your government has helped us in the field of science and medicine, and there are Cuban doctors serving in the Anuradhapura hospitals, the Ampara hospitals, and also your government, as you very correctly mentioned, had offered students who want to pursue a career in the medicine scholarships. What more can your government do to strengthen this relationship and to help the science field and the medical field?
Well, exist contacts, I can say permanent contacts between the authorities of both countries, and especially the wish to expand, develop more the existing relation. We receive also, we are receiving, we are talking with the authority, coconut authority of Sri Lanka that have exchanged with the Ministry of Agriculture of Cuba, because we are interested to develop more the coconut production. Also, we can promote more our relation in the sports field. In fact, the sports authorities of Sri Lanka are interested to continue to develop the exchange in this field. And I think that Cuba can help Sri Lanka in this regard of that Sri Lankan athletes receive training in Cuba, Cuban coaches come to Sri Lanka to help to Sri Lankan athletes to be prepared for international competitions. And also a very important question that Cuba can help to Sri Lanka is in the supply of pharmaceutical products, because Cuba, since the beginning of this revolution, start a program of formed scientifics and facilities to produce products from the biotechnology, etc. We, in this moment, we are producing the vaccines against COVID-19. Our country is vaccinated totally with the Cuban vaccines. These vaccines even are in this moment exported to different countries, like Vietnam here in Asia, to Iran, to the Islamic Republic of Iran, to Venezuela, to Nicaragua, and Mexico, and other Caribbean countries. I think that this is an opportunity that this important product can arrive here.
Your Excellency, we take this opportunity to thank you and your government for all the support, for all the cooperation that you have given Sri Lanka throughout all these years. Finally, Your Excellency, what advice can you give someone who aspires to become a diplomat or who wants to study international relations?
Well, I advise to the students of the diplomatic career that when they go to represent the country abroad or here, everywhere, that the first question is to work for the people, only for the people, in benefit of the people. This is my advice.
Excellency, a thought for your country towards the world and towards humanity can bring about a positive establishment for all mankind to live in harmony. So I guess it's a responsibility of all of us. So thank you so much for joining our program today and all that you've shared. And we wish you and your family all the very best in life.
Thank you very much.